we are live, and I am with the Keystone Party's Pennsylvania governor candidate, and he is a liberty-minded man. Everybody from the Libertarian Party should know who this individual is. I am the Lunatic Libertarian, Justin Lomness, and we are going to sit down with Mr. Joe Soloski and find out where he is in this campaign. First of all, I would like to apologize to Ms. Nicole Schultz and to Christine to say that I did not go live on Facebook my last broadcast. I just wanted to apologize. But we are running and rocking with Joe now. So, Joe, let everybody know what's going on in Pennsylvania with the Keystone Party, your governor's race, and how you guys are rocking it out there.
Well, thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity to be here on your show and to talk directly to your listeners, sir. We are indeed rocking here in Pennsylvania. I've been running for governor for 18 months now. I was the first candidate in the race. I announced back in December of 2020, and it's been a fun 18 months. I've met a lot of voters. I've been able to attend a lot of events and speak to a lot of people. The evolution that is taking place with the liberty movement right now, what I call the new and necessary evolution, is indeed the Keystone Party, born here in Pennsylvania. And as of right now, there's 24 more states that are interested in starting up a Keystone affiliate. To say we are excited would be a dramatic understatement. We think there's going to be amazing movement in the liberty movement in the next 3 to 5 years. And Keystone is going to be at the absolute forefront of that. So that's a quick capsule summation of where we stand right now with Keystone.
Well, that's excellent. I know everybody's out there working hard, trying to get signatures for everybody to make sure they have ballot access. Pennsylvania's a giant state, and you have to have a lot of signatures to get on the ballots out there. Yeah. Let us know what your plan is if you get elected governor. What is your first initiative, and what is the balance you want to bring to government, if that's something?
Well, the biggest thing we need to do is continue to promote personal liberty, because we need to end the two-party system. That is the biggest thing that is encroaching on people's rights and on voting rights too. Those two parties of the duopoly do everything they can to keep third parties off the ballot. And we get out there, we get the signatures on our petitions, we make sure we're on the ballot, we beat them at their own game every time. And the great people who are at the helm and really the heart and soul of the Keystone Party, these were the people that, like me, were disenchanted libertarians. The way the Libertarian Party has changed, we moved on so that we could have a much more pragmatic, much more professional banner focused on electing candidates to office. And we think our best chance to make that happen is to get candidates elected. If we're going to make the changes we need, we've got to get people in there. And we think we've got the best ideas to promote liberty. Myself, as soon as I am elected governor, I've said to people again and again, cutting the budget is indeed an absolute top ongoing priority. We've watched the Pennsylvania budget grow. Just 20 years ago, 2002, the operating portion was $20 billion. It's now $41 billion. It's more than doubled in just 20 years. I say it again and again to people, we don't have a revenue problem here in Pennsylvania. We've got a spending problem. And every year, Republicans and Democrats, they legislate in lockstep, and they keep increasing taxes slowly over time. They keep doing it. Personal income tax, gasoline taxes. We could go on and on. They don't eliminate any of them, and several need to be gone very quickly. And they just gobble up all the money that they can generate, and up, up, up goes the budget and the spending. So I'll lead from the top. I know as soon as I land in office, I'll be operating under an existing budget that will have about 6 months to go. I will immediately have to start working on the 2023 budget for July 1st, 2023. It has to be approved. So I'll start from the top. I'll be slashing my personal salary by more than 60%, because a lot of people don't know this. They don't focus on it. The governor of Pennsylvania is the third highest paid governor in the nation. Only New York and California are ahead of us. We currently pay Governor Wolf about $205,000 a year. I say we pay him that. I didn't say he earned it. I don't think he has in the least. So I will be cutting that salary to $70,000, or just a wee bit under that. And at that moment, Pennsylvania will have the lowest paid governor in the nation, like that. Once I do that, I can now approach our highly overpaid legislature and say, come on, guys, it's your turn now. I want to see their pay cut. I want to see them become a part-time body. I want term limits. I want ranked choice voting. These are the things that in a very short period of time, 3, 5 to 10 years, is going to better balance the legislature. That alone, you get a few more third parties in there. That's what's going to do it. Ranked choice voting and term limits. You do that, we'll have better balance in the legislature. And we third parties, those elected officials, will actually make the Republicans and Democrats better, because we'll be able to hold their feet to the fire. That's going to be the first thing I'm focusing on as soon as I get to into the office. And then moving forward, I want to make sure that we are cutting the state budget by a minimum of 5% a year. That's the threshold. It's got to be 5%, and hopefully it's more. Hey, we do that for just one term. One term, we're down 20%. That's a wonderful thing. And we can do that. I guarantee you there is fat in every office, every department in this state, because that budget has more than doubled in just 20 years. If we focus on cutting spending, we can cut taxation, and we can start to make Pennsylvania a tax haven. That'll attract business, and that'll attract residents.
What do you think of people that don't want to have their own responsibilities, but they still want the security of government, but then you have to worry about your own responsibilities and choices, as far as your finances and stuff like that. And do you think that government has given people too much reliance or dependency versus their own personal choices?
It has. It has created this false sense, this false security blanket. And it's not a security blanket at all. It is a false sense of, well, let's call it security for a moment. I'll call it lack of responsibility. Most people want to make their own decisions. Most people want to keep their own money, spend it the way they want, and make their own decisions. If we could start on that track, I guarantee you, just 4 years, we will see vast economic improvement here in Pennsylvania. Being able to do things like slash the gasoline tax, eliminate the inheritance tax, which I personally feel is immoral. It's strange that death gives rise to a taxable event, but here it does in Pennsylvania. And I could go on and on with those, but we leave money in the hands of our citizens. In the long run, it's a huge improvement, and everybody can exercise their own responsibility on how they spend their own money. They don't have to give it to government to filter a little bit of it back. I'll use a great example. One of my opponents, the Democrat, Josh Shapiro, he keeps touting that when he's governor, he's going to give everybody a $250 stimulus check to help with your gasoline purchases. And I'm thinking, what a bad idea. We have runaway inflation right now, all fueled by the approximate $18 trillion that the last two presidential administrations have funneled into this system. And now we're paying for it. We don't need another stimulus check. And we sure don't need government being a middleman. I say slash the fuel tax. Don't send it to you. Hey, if you're going to send us $250, how about we don't send it to you in the first place? If we could slash the gasoline tax, Now we're leaving that money in the hands of Pennsylvania citizens. You just got an improvement in your standard of living, because instead of it being $5 a gallon, boom, maybe we can get it down to $4.50 overnight. And then hopefully the recession that we're going into right now in this high inflationary period, hopefully this settles over the next few years, and some other better policies are going to help level out fuel prices. But that's just one element.
I got a question for you. When you look at the American skill set, as far as getting through your everyday life or having skills to, fix your own home if you do own it, or your own vehicle or anything like that, how do Americans reduce their expenditures by having their own skill sets? And I think that's one of the things that people don't look at, is that if you don't have to pay A, B, C, and D individual to do things for you, maybe you'd be able to keep more money in your pocket. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I have to agree with you completely. Now, I'll use my own example, personal example. A couple of years ago, I decided I wanted a deck on the back of my house. I've wanted it for some time. Luckily for me, now, I don't have great skills as a carpenter, but I thought, okay, maybe I can give this a shot. I've looked at plenty of decks, and the wonder of YouTube certainly helped me out. I watched a lot of videos of individuals showing how to set the posts, how to bind the whole thing together. Long story short, for a relatively reasonable amount of money, boom, I've got a wonderful deck on the back of the house now. But let's face it, if I decide to, I want to wire some new lighting or run some new plumbing, this guy's smart enough to know those are not my skill sets. And I'm probably going to make sure I hire a qualified person that has those technical skills. But yes, everything from car repairs, home repairs, there's so many things that we can do as individuals if we have the desire, if we have the motivation to cut our own costs. And I do it, and I'm sure most people do too.
Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about. I'm a master diesel technician, so I'm trained in HVAC systems, electrical. Doesn't matter if it's a 230 generator that's driven by a PTO to run a carbon dioxide transfer pump or any of that stuff. The thing is that, or the refrigeration systems that transport cheese and meat across the country. I'm certified in those things as well. When it comes to the average individual, I think that we've been perversely transformed into consumers versus producers. And I think that when you have an everlasting human want to reach a threshold of societal norms, like I have to wear this pair of jeans or this name or this or that, it goes into, well, what really helps you along your timeline in this reality to say that I'm not worried about that, because I need to provide food. I need to know what nourishment does to my body. I need to know what, if I consume too much sugar, maybe I'll come up with cancer 50 years from now. And it's a reliance on the consumer to constantly buy your product that I think that, and cheap foods as well, that people don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand the knowledge behind that. I was talking to Nicole about that because she runs her own farm, and it's like, when we can rely on ourselves versus having a dependency. And that's just the mindset, in my own personal opinion, is that we have a mindset of dependency on government and others instead of a dependency on oneself. And then we have the overwhelming mental health problems in this country because people don't know what to do. I use the acronym, or the analogy: Tom, Dick, Susan, Paul, and Pal didn't do this for me, so now I'm behind. That kind of stuff, is that it creates a mentality of how the reliance on another slows one progression. And I think I've hit that on a spectrum that most from the left and from the right can understand.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you there completely. And I think you mentioned Nicole. Nicole's our, my running mate. She has a farm of her own. She's the agricultural expert. When those questions come up and we're speaking, I typically defer to Nicole rather than someone like myself who doesn't have that background. I am impressed by people who, I notice more and more people gardening extensively. And I admire that. I wish I was better at that. The little bit that I've tried, I've had limited results, but hey, results are results. It's a starting point. It's a starting point to develop those skills. And you were mentioning about reliance on great food. There's so much cheap food out there or fast food out there. And sugar is in everything. I think sugar is the biggest culprit of the bunch. If we can focus better on our own diets, and even if we grow a little bit on our own, to those people who can grow a whole yard, dang, I admire you. More power to you.
Well, I think we suffer from an overabundance in this country as well, as far as being able to know that if I can hit the grocery store, and people now have understood that that grocery store may no longer have that consumer good that you wish or you wanted. Well, then you're going to have to wait. And maybe it is not a production issue. Maybe it's I have an overproduction and the price isn't correct. Or I have an underproduction, but I don't have enough laborers to be able to bring my product to market. And I think that people have lost this understanding of how the system really works.
I think you're probably right. And I think back just 2 years ago to when we were having to endure these unconstitutional lockdowns. My heavens, I'd go to the grocery store and sometimes they had lines waiting all the way out the door, even in the middle of winter. I would say, well, how did we get to this point so quickly where we've got Soviet food lines? And then you'd get in the store, and as you said, we had all of a sudden supply disruptions, things that we had taken so for granted. All of a sudden, things weren't on the shelves. And I think that helped make a lot of people focus more on how can I provide this now more reliably for my own family, neighbors also, by doing it myself. And again, we try, we have to try to develop those skills. Like I say, I've dabbled a little bit in it myself, but like I say, very limited results. I'm a long way from where I need to be in that arena. But those are the kind of things where we're going to have to reach back and find more self-reliance, much like our previous generations did. I mean, I'm just talking about our own parents and grandparents. You don't have to look back too far and see how they were able to stretch a buck and be much more absolutely self-reliant.
Absolutely. I'm going to do a quick sound check. Can the audience tell me if my static situation has ended?
I can say personally, I'm not hearing any static.
Okay, I've not received a response yet, but yeah, the individual skill set, reliance on someone's own skills. I had, the simple definition of a word that escaped another individual, and is something that I brought up in another conversation. That it's like these are things that I think are trivial and everybody should know, but it's actually knowledge that has transcended to the next generation. And it's something that it's a kind of alarming, where the overabundance of convenience and modern technologies have wavered to, and I'm going to say it because I'm a lunatic, it's obesity, it's body standards, it's health standards. Well, if I eat a bunch of soy butter, then I'm healthy, but we understand that as a coagulated substance, it's a hard substance. It's not something that probably shouldn't be flowing through your bloodstream on a daily basis.
Okay.
Margarine was first originally developed to be a diesel engine lubricant. They found out that humans can consume it, and then it became a mass industry until 50-year-olds were dying of heart attacks from the baby boomer generation. Same thing with lard or TV dinners. The modern convenience systems that we have in place have corrupted the human mind, where, in my opinion, they don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand how things get done. The troubleshooting of modern problems, like I have a flat tire. How is the tire fastened to the wheel? Well, that was never taught to me because we have no auto shop anymore. So I'm completely oblivious.
What a shame.
The fathers are out of the home, if not completely, 8, 10, 12,
Easily.
14, 16 hours out of the day to try and produce an income to sustain some quality of life or standard of living, like the government likes to say. Well, what's the standard of living? When we know poverty level is probably around $35,000, $45,000 a year instead of the 12 to 15,000 like they talk about, because you're still living paycheck to paycheck. you're still on the credit system. We operate our companies off of purchase orders and borrowed time. I mean, how long does it really last?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't have a simple answer to that. You touched on a lot of things there. And the one that I focused on was the whole understanding of the supply chain. You know, I don't think most people really understand where our products come from, where our food comes from, what the process is to get it to your plate, to get it to your home. And it's in the same way, most people, while they don't understand that hand in hand, they don't understand economics, which is deadly. It's yes, a dull subject, but you've got to understand the money supply. You've got to understand how government works and how it can adversely affect the whole economic structure. Their
Okay,
actions.
I got a question. Are you a modern monetary theory guy, or are you a Rothschild economics guy? Are you back in the day skill sets for skill sets, gold and or tangible assets for asset?
You know, I've always enjoyed listening to Milton Friedman when he spoke. You know, he is not only motivational, but the guy understands economics. Let's face it. And it's not that difficult. It's fairly, you know, it's fairly simple. I think I lean more toward Friedman if I had to say who's my favorite economist. And when you look again, I can just go back one generation or two. You know, a lot more of our products were generated locally. I mean, we knew, you know, my dad was able to tell me when the ice truck came to the Meadow Gold Dairy around the corner from where he lived, he understood how the products came into that dairy, including the ice. And he also could see how it was distributed. And it was all relatively local. What I've noticed in the most current part of this generation is we focus on it's a global economy. Now, that's also a wonderful thing. It's wonderful products made all over the world. And it's great that we have such easier access to them. And at times it actually drives prices down. You also have to watch for quality, though. You know, there's a lot of difference between a piece of furniture that's made here in Pennsylvania or in Ohio by an Amish craftsman, as opposed to something that's being pounded out by a factory that may be using shoddy materials. And people sometimes don't focus on that. They only look at price. We need to focus on quality, and you get a lot more long-term bang for your buck that way. I got off on a little tangent there from...
No, you're fine, because quality actually kills economics when you think about it, because if I don't buy your product once every few years, how do you stay in business? Or your product doesn't fail enough to where you can make a profit off of parts and service sales and stuff like that. Like, go buy a 150-year-old Amish bedroom set. That thing will last another 150 to 300 years, no problem.
You're handing it down to your heirs.
Correct. Mm-hmm. That is something that was a product that was built to last, and that is what it was meant to do. It was meant to last multiple lifetimes.
Yes.
To show the craftsmanship that went into that product and the pride. And we don't see that anymore. It's the economics behind it. I have to provide you something that fails to make sure you keep buying my product.
That's right.
And it's a falsy, but you can sell it on modern convenience. And I think that that's another thing that's hypnotized people to say, well, I can just go get another one. But they don't realize when I talk to Kennedy down in New Mexico, he was like, yeah, I'm a conservationist. I'm not trying to do this and that with everything. I want self-sustainability. I need something that's going to not detriment my environment with plastics and everything else. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of funny how everybody gets into their mindset of what these words mean or what they actually are. And you can have an argument with somebody for the Green New Deal or somebody that's about oil and nuclear and all these other things. And it's like, do you want a world that's going to be there after you're gone? just so that you can satisfy your own modern convenience? How much are you willing to sacrifice to make that happen? And most people, I get deer in headlight looks.
Yeah, and I think when they look at their kids, when they look at their grandchildren, that's when they finally start thinking, what kind of world am I leaving here? Now, a lot of the things we're talking about right now, obviously, this is determined by the free market, which is wonderful, and also consumer demand. And I think that's where there's a divergence. You've got consumers who have been almost conditioned, as you said, to buy the next product or buy the cheaper thing, buy the thing with the planned obsolescence. And as long as we continue to be that way, the free market's going to provide it. If we can start to demand something that has more longevity, something that is higher quality, something that's going to last, the market will provide that. But it's up to the individual to demand it. Government, unfortunately, I'm entering this arena. Anytime they try to stick their nose in it, they only make the process worse. Great example. I can remember, you want to talk about something that the free market provided that was high quality. I can think back again to the previous two generations. Maytag washer and dryers. My gosh, you could buy them when you were first getting married, and decades later, they're still in the basement running. They were easy to fix. The parts were always available. They just ran and ran and ran. Now, no, they don't make anything like that anymore. My wife and I bought a new dryer 2 years ago, and it does just about everything. When you look at its console, it does just about everything except dry clothing. It doesn't dry clothing. And I have to override it to manual to make it run longer. And here the problem is you have government got involved with that free market process, wanting to save energy. Ooh, let's make sure we save energy. This dryer uses less electricity. Yes. And it doesn't dry clothing. Oh, we overlooked something kind of important there. So now I'm buying something that, I'm sorry, it looks pretty, but it's kind of worthless. And if you have to run your cycles at a longer time or 2 or 3 times over, you've pretty much overridden the government's attempt to reduce energy usage. So again, there's a lot of free market things that you're talking about here. I wanted to talk about how government also makes matters worse.
I can go right into the EPA with Class 8 and 7 and 6 trucks. I can go right into the actual supply chain and how food actually gets to market. I can go right there, and how it's bankrupted businesses because there's not enough parts available. There's going to be breakdowns. The crap goes into the environment one way or the other, no matter how you think about it. It's the same thing with refrigerants for your freezer or your air conditioner in your household, all the way up to a transport refrigeration train that's hauling loads of Wagyu beef out of Japan to hit the plane, and the plane's refrigerated or the ship and whatever. I mean, we can go into the multiple millions of gallons of fuel that are burned per hour to make life sustainable in the globe.
Yes.
From ships to diesel generators to you name it. This is an industry I'm very, very familiar with as a master diesel technician. There's nothing that runs without fossil fuels and a diesel. I'm telling you that right now. There is not one.
Yeah,
you can have the glory of EV vehicles. My concern with electrical vehicles is shielding. That's my main concern. You're an electromagnetic being. Your heart, if it's around an electromagnetic field too long, this is something that's told to welders. It's something that's attributed to infertility in welders when their leads are too close to their machines and stuff like that. So this is not unheard of. Just depends on what science you want to follow, what people are involved, and what studies you want to read. I've talked to welders. The thing is I know about these things. It's funny how nothing is brought up about shielding as far as electromagnetic fields. We can go into 5G and the conspiracy theory behind that with these high intensity pulsed microwaves that penetrate multiple different materials, whether it be concrete or drywall or even steel. This is something that DARPA has developed. We can go into the patents of that. That's a long. I think that's another long-winded conversation. But when we talk about people's ignorance to things and how they work, there's different levels to it, just like anything else. So I mean, that's my main thing when I talk to the general population, and most people think I'm an asshole because I'm talking down to them, but I'm trying to like, hey, listen to this, check this out. Have you heard of this? And they're just like, holy shit, dude, what have you been? You spend too much time in your attic reading.
You know more about some of these topics than I do. We've got to listen to each other so that we can learn from each other. I might know a little bit more about one or two things than some other people. You know, I hope they would be willing to listen to me too on those issues. But yeah, please continue, because you've got a lot of great stuff there.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about Pennsylvania, that is an industry that people don't like fracking. There's another industry that likes fracking. I think Pennsylvania should be an energy independent state, because nobody should pay for energy in Pennsylvania. That's where all this stuff comes from. Why should your tax dollars go to, or even your earned income go to anything for energy when your state provides it just because of your geolocation? That's something that I don't understand, when government is there to provide for me, according to certain politicians. What are your thought process on fracking, and maybe probably getting these corporations to make Pennsylvania an independent state as energy, because that's where all the energy comes from the landmass? Do you think that would attract more workers to that energy, or something like that?
We definitely attracted a lot of workers. If you go back 15 years, starting about that point, give or take, with the fracking industry. That may actually be 20 at this point. But, you saw a lot of operations taking place left and right to frack and extract that natural gas. I'm of the mind that it is generally safe. Most of the fracking is taking place at such a depth that it is well below the water table. That gas can be extracted safely to the surface without damaging the environment. And I just think it was a boom for Pennsylvania. You saw great paying jobs coming here. We saw more energy being, more natural resources being extracted. So energy prices tumbled. I don't know anybody who complains about lower energy prices. And on top of that, as far as the state of Pennsylvania goes, I guarantee you their tax coffers increased dramatically, because you now have people coming here, working here. Up go your income taxes. These people were buying products. Up go your sales tax receipts. It was all good for Pennsylvania. And so when they were talking about, let's institute a severance tax, I'm sorry, Pennsylvania, you're just getting greedy here. And you institute that severance tax, you're going to scare away that industry to go someplace else where they can extract those same resources cheaper. They're going to do that. Pennsylvania, let's face it, we still have it. Wow, I was going to say we still have a ton of coal. That would have been a pun, unintended, but there's plenty of coal here, and coal is still a viable fuel. I think back today, they have so many ways of cleaning coal before it gets to market. And as it's being burned, there's smokestack scrubbers, they clean it at every part of the process, and it provides low cost energy to generate our electricity. I'm sorry, I'm not a windmill solar guy. Yes, they are providing somewhere between 2 and 5%, but they're probably, for the most part, almost maxed out. My biggest concern with renewables, we were talking about electric cars earlier too, but renewable energy, when you look at windmills and solar, they're disposal problems long term. They are today, who would have thought a windmill, these huge windmills have about a 20-year life. They then have to take them down, And when they take those blades down, and we've seen
there's
them,
nowhere to go with them. There's nowhere to go.
They have to slice them into thirds, transport them currently, I think, to Colorado, where there is a graveyard where they are literally burying windmill blades. Now, wow. Hey, if you're an environmentalist, what do you think of this?
Well, they're deadly fibers. That's why. There's no way to get rid of that specific compound in which they're made of that wouldn't be detrimental according to our own human knowledge as of right now. And people don't understand that.
And they can't be recycled. They cannot. They can be cut up and, in this case, buried. Well, I don't think that's a great solution. Now you look at solar. Same situation. You get 20 years down the road, pretty much those solar cells are now at the very end of their life. And the disposition of those is problematic and expensive. And you know what's going to happen. Sooner or later, when they are piling up, people are going to say, government, you're going to have to pay for this. That is not how the free market's supposed to work. I also don't like government subsidizing those industries or any industries. They shouldn't be picking the winners and losers with our tax dollars.
That's absolutely correct.
If solar is such a wonderful thing, then darn it, let it fly. If it's such a wonderful thing, it will. But it's not. It can only provide a small percentage of our total need. And when people get the idea, hey, we need to shift to electric cars, I go back and I point out two things. Look at a hot summer right now in California. California was asking people to restrict the charging and use of their electric cars. Well, that's counterproductive. I bought my car to be able to go wherever I want to go.
Correct.
I also think in the winter, I think it was here up on I-80, there was a major crash that stranded motorists for 24 to 48 hours. They could not get them off this snowy road. And the temperatures at night are well below freezing. I guarantee you those electric cars ran out of juice and weren't providing any heat. That's not where you want to end up. They are a panacea. Now, I think if somebody wants one, fine. I've long felt, what's a great place for an electric car? Probably an in-the-city runabout. You could charge it overnight. Maybe you're delivering flowers or delivering what your business is. And it could be a very reasonable golf cart style inner city runabout. But that's about it. If I want to drive to Florida, its range ain't going to make it. And now I'm having to figure out, where am I going to refuel this thing? How can I charge it? Maybe I'll stay overnight. What used to be a 22, 24-hour trip to drive could now be 3 days. I'm sorry, I'm not excited about this.
Well, and another thing, Joe, is people don't understand where the raw materials come from. And they wonder why we were in Afghanistan. It's for the raw copper. It's for the raw lithium. It's for the raw uranium and palladium. It is not about freedom or anything like that. Don't play yourself. If you think that is why people there were killed, that's why Russia was there back in the 80s, and that's why we paid multiple billions of dollars to the Taliban that was developed out of Afghanistan from us providing them weapons to fight Russia or the USSR at the time. Please go look in your history books, go read where your money went. These are bills and stuff that you can read, the allocation of funds. There's a lot of black ops stuff that you will not see. And this is another reason that a lot of veterans believe that 9/11 was an inside job, because there's a lot of black money that got buried with those buildings. And people don't want to touch on those subjects because, maybe it's a little too offset. But as far as my concept on electric vehicles, the raw materials alone, and also people even farmers are fighting for the right to repair. As a mechanic, John Deere says you do not have the right to repair your own vehicle. We built the product. You can only bring it to us. Everybody that is licking Elon Musk's brown star you need to understand, he will shut your vehicle off if you do not bring it to a Tesla repair center, period.
And my understanding is if you take it elsewhere or try to do it yourself, you void your Tesla warranty. Yeah, I read that about John Deere recently. I don't know if they're the only farming equipment manufacturer, but that's doing this.
Caterpillar, Komatsu.
Okay.
The Right to Repair Act is up for enforcement. This is something that has a lot of people scared because even as a third party, if you're not a part of a dealership group, you don't even have the right to actually have access to the software to pull codes or anything.
Wow. I did not realize to this moment that it was that deep. Yeah, when I read that and it was about John Deere, I was stunned. Because let's face it, you talk about having the technical know-how. My gosh, our agricultural community has been doing this in the yard for years. And I personally kind of miss the years with our own personal vehicles where we could be shade tree mechanics. I look under my hood now and I think, oh, heck no, I wouldn't know where to start. And
Joe, I paid probably $225,000 to just perform my occupation.
No kidding.
And I'm still paying on it.
And you know, it's a shame. We make things, and I understand the free market again. Consumers are demanding all the things that we see on our cars, but it's pushing the price up. And at the same time, we can't repair them ourselves. There's so many more things to go wrong. And it's one of my little pet peeves because I'm a car guy. I kind of yearn sometimes for my 1968 Plymouth. You know, I don't think there was a computer module on that thing. There was a ton of room around that 383 engine. You could work on it if you had the know-how. I didn't. I could have maybe changed some spark plugs. That's about it. But darn it, you know, you look now, you'd be afraid of doing more harm than good if you work on your own engine. And I wish that we could go back to that even personally. But yes, for the agricultural community, these people have the know-how to fix their own equipment. They've been doing it for decades, and they shouldn't be precluded from doing it.
Well, and with the EPA being involved on Class A trucks, I mean, there are people, and the EPA is out there looking to find these people who have circumvented the government and said, we're not going to abide by your rules and regulations.
Yes.
And said, I cannot be down when my crops have to be harvested because I have this much of a timeline.
Right.
This much. I'm not playing by your economic rules. I'm playing by, let's say, the Lord's rules or whatever, that this crop has to be harvested in this timeline. You cannot be playing games with, well, my truck's going to shut down because I got a low coolant light, or I'm going to go into a D rate because my after treatment system is plugged, or any of it. It's got a code. No, and then it's going to cost you $2,000-$3,000 and a tow bill and everything else. This is the ridiculousness of the acronym "Keep It Simple, Stupid" has become an economic thing that says no, we have to make it the most complicated thing ever just so we can make money.
Yeah, and you nailed it. You know, let's face it. It's an old saying, but you got to make hay while the sun shines. You can't wait for John Deere to show up next Friday to get this thing fixed. Now, I'm not saying that they may not be way more responsive than that. But again, if you could fix it that afternoon, you're still working. And yeah, that bill would have my complete support.
The thing is that it not only we are in lackluster numbers as far as trade skills in this country, lackluster numbers.
Okay.
And then you have the right that wants to complain about open borders and we need to build the wall and all this stuff. But we have skilled trade individuals coming in and doing work for much lower than the average labor cost in this country just because they don't meet a certain criteria. Then you have the left saying, hey, this is going on, but you're not complaining when your grass is cut and this is going on, or you know, your drywall to your new $300,000 house is being done because a busload of immigrants comes in and does the work for $8 an hour versus a union rep that's going to get it done at 28 bucks an hour. The thing is that people don't understand how the system works, in my opinion. And I'm just a low life mechanic that came from the gutter and just talk shit in his house. But I think that people don't understand that, you know, I've come from the inner city and I didn't know anything about farm country to where I live now, and completely understand that a trucker is going to be overloaded by 15,000 pounds because we got to make sure that that load gets to the processor.
Sure.
And then the next load and the next load and the next load. But that contractor can't be down because that harvest has to hit the stores because everybody makes promises. And people complain about politicians making promises they can't meet, but people aren't going to, people will bitch about their mechanic, their farmer, their grocery store, and everybody else that's not providing what they can't provide themselves. And I guess that's my whole premise of a lot of my arguments. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head that, you know, if we can understand economics, you understand how shit works.
Absolutely.
If you can understand from the farmer to the table, if you understand how that system works, you understand how shit works. If you want to understand the political game from XYZ, you understand how stuff works. I mean, nobody's going to argue that factor, but a lot of people play off of what they've been informed with via media and to suggest you to go one way or another. Well, I've watched 10 million commercials to tell me which way I should go, and I know absolutely to disregard all 10 million of them as an individual person.
Yeah.
I think that's something else that people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror about, how they've been sold a product that doesn't actually produce what you want it to do.
I hear you. People have to think for themselves.
So, Joe, what do you want to do as far as getting that fiscal the spending down to a minimum without jeopardizing, you know, lower income and stuff like that? Because, you know, a lot of Democrats will say, well, you're going to kill everybody that's dependent on the system. You know, they'll take that extreme note.
Sure they will, but there's a problem. The system stinks. And the center of the system is the two-party system, and they make a lot of money by holding on to their power. They are trying to control the situation, you know, and I get a little bit disappointed when I hear people say everything, Joe, what you're saying about third parties is great, but, you know, if I don't think they can win, then I'm going to vote over here. And I'm like, you know, you have a lot of complaints. If you really want something different, you're going to have to vote for something different. And we are in this my team wins mindset. It's a shame. I guess I've still that silly young idealist that I always was. I always thought people would vote their principles. They would vote for the best candidate. But they seem like, no. I guess I'm an R, or I guess I'm a D, and I'm going to vote over there just so the other guys don't win. And and you don't even look and see what a lousy job your guys are doing. It is disappointing when I talk to people and they fall back on that brainwashed propaganda that they've eaten by the bowlful. So, you know, there's a lot of changes that could be made. You know, there is so much fat, like I said. This budget has more than doubled in just 20 years. You know, and I look at states, you know, Justin, I look at states like Tennessee, I look at Florida, I look at Texas, and I realize business-friendly states don't have income taxes. And here we are, you know, and people say, well, our personal income tax, it's only 3%, 3.07. I'm sorry, it's 50% higher than it was just 35 years ago, 50% higher. And here's the biggest downside of the whole withholding system. People never sense what they've lost when the government takes the first cut. The government always takes the first cut. And people just look at their net and they think, and I understand, that's your spendable income. That's what you have to live on. But darn it, if you had to write the check to the feds, if you had to write the check to Harrisburg, yes, you get it. You would know how much you're really having to part company with. You would feel the money in your hands because you've earned it. And now you got to part company with it. You know, that's the biggest downside of the system, and it helps them retain their power. They have
And the more you make, the more they take.
Absolutely.
As a man that went from, okay, I'm on welfare, they're giving me $400 a month in food stamps and this much in WIC and yada, 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 to making what I make now. And it's like the more that I make, the more you take. And then you want more away from me. You're taking away from my family. You're taking away from my time for my children. And I don't have time for everyone to keep taking. Pretty soon, there has to be this tip.
Yeah.
And I think we're at that tipping point for most of the real hardworking Americans in this country. We're at that tipping point. It's just like, no, I'm not going to take this crap anymore.
I have to agree with you. I have felt the same thing. We're at that tipping point. I mean, if we're not, we are so darn close. People are fed up. And I think, you know, again, when people say, why are you running? When they're all so entrenched in the old R's and D's, I think this is a golden moment. People, they just have to look at the last two presidential elections and say to themselves, was that the best we could do? And it's pathetic. And I think, but I see both sides. I have Democrats and Republicans that talk to me. They're as disenchanted as the independents. So this is a golden moment, a wonderful opportunity for third parties. And I think this is where Keystone is going to have its greatest growth. We appeal not only to those libertarians that were fed up with the direction the party has gone, we also are have a lot of appeal to those disenchanted R's and D's. But the biggest thing, you know, we acknowledge that the independents, and some of them sit on the sidelines constantly, some of them don't, but they've never found a home. We're trying to be that home. We're trying to be that place where we can attract them and say, this is where you need to put your energy. This is where you need to put your vote, because this is where the change is going to happen. This is indeed the new and necessary evolution of the liberty movement. We accomplish this. We can turn this system around. And I feel we could turn it around in a relatively short period of time. It's not going to happen overnight. But once we start getting people into elected office and we start to make these changes, and honestly, people say to me, Joe, you're one guy. Joe, you're one guy. What change can you make? And I'll say, you know what? The veto pen is very powerful. And I'll use the veto pen constantly. If I see a bill I don't like, even if there's pieces in it that I do like, but it's got a lot of attachments, or it's some omnibus that, you know, if it's something that I'm saying they've got poison pills in this thing or two, veto it. Get it back to me in clean form. You want to pass something? Get me a good bill that I like. Another thing I'll do, and I'll do it every year, if we don't cut the budget by at least 5%, I will veto every budget that they send to me, even if it means shutting down Pennsylvania government. I don't care. You know, shutting down Pennsylvania government would probably be a blessing compared to them just continuing to spend the way they do. And I thought, you know what? If the legislature decides we're going to override your veto, Soloski, fine, you go ahead. And I will hang you with that all the way for the next year into the next budget process. It is going to be on your heads. I will remind people of how you gutted the state pension system, took it from a $7 billion surplus and took it to a more than $50+ billion deficit. I'll point out to them, it wasn't all that long ago that you did the middle of the night payjacking, where you granted yourselves a big pay increase, then you had to back off of it. Also, they now have, as you know, they get an annual automatic increase beginning of every year, which I completely object to. Our incoming state representatives right now earn I'm in around slightly, $95,000 a year, 95, and we have 203 of those state reps, and then another 50 senators. Now, I don't think you're getting your money's worth, citizens of Pennsylvania. Yet these people, give it another year, no more than 2, those incoming freshmen legislators will be making a 6-figure income that many of you only dream about, and they're going to get it automatically. So these are the areas we've got to keep putting a magnifying glass on, a big spotlight. And I will do that as governor constantly to continue to get people's attention.
What do you think if you could make Pennsylvania energy dependent state where the energy comes right out of your ground? There's an infrastructure built to where every household's plumbed right into a natural gas source or something like that. And then the companies that lease the lands from the individuals that they actually drill on or frack on or whatever, they provide those individuals energy for free. And then, because it's providing one for another. And then in Wisconsin, we're trying to get, as libertarians, trying to get hemp really produced in this state because Wisconsin would probably be there. We're already probably, I think, 48th in the chart as far as federal tax dollars that we take. So we're probably one of the minimal states that takes federal money. So if we could get hemp produced for textiles, energy, there's
it's got
10
so
million
many possibilities.
Correct. We finally got CBD passed for consumption for the public use. Epilepsy, there's a Volkmir that was involved, and I really did not like this woman, Leah Volkmir, who is a complete she's a nurse that was all about industry and pharmaceutical money, and she could go have a long drive off a short pier, let's just say. Because the knowledge that was supposedly there as an academic in her industry was completely ignorant to the true science of what the industry really is. And I've talked to many nurses about how academia has made that information perverse as well. How are you to real cash crops? How are you to real energy solutions? And then how are you to making the ability of states to trade between themselves to make this a United States again?
I see what you're saying. First of all, I'm 100% behind the full, I don't want to say legalization. I'm more about decriminalization.
So am I.
Hemp should be able to be grown like onions. I mean, come on. And it has so many benefits, so many uses in industry. Everything like you said, and even into like hemp concrete is a stronger product. My heaven.
Hemp oak, hemp concrete, hemp clothing, hemp fuel, hemp seed for your own diet.
And you can turn it around so much quicker, rather than cutting down the trees. Everybody says we got to, great, keep planting trees, but you could harvest hemp, turn it around very quickly, much more efficiently. That uses less fertilizer, uses less water. I mean,
less land.
Yes, that's the way to go. Now let's get back to energy. Also, I'm a big nuclear guy. Okay, and the reason being,
I'm a big steam guy.
Okay. I look at nuclear, and it isn't, I'm sorry. It's not, we don't live in an age of Chernobyl anymore. We don't live in the age of the China Syndrome movie anymore. People say to me, well, look at what happened at 3 Mile Island, or they think about that movie, China Syndrome. And I say, you realize back then the systems worked. Although, there were problems, there was operator error too, but everything was analog. Nothing was digital yet. Now everything's digital. We have systems that are on top of systems, redundant systems. It is the safest industry going. And I think we have approved one new nuclear plant in the last, 40 years. I look at France. France has decided to go 100% nuclear. I think Germany's pushing it also at a much higher level. They're also pushing coal, I just read again.
Joe, I'm going to say one thing, though. If the U.S. government and companies that purchase them would have complete open discretion on all the patents that have not been disclosed to the public because they have been shelved because it kills their industry currently,
Okay.
like the 40 mile to the gallon carburetor that was produced in 1965.
Yeah.
The hydrogen-based energy system that was disproven on Mythbusters, but actually has been resurfaced via a Joe Rogan podcast of an
Okay.
individual that all of a sudden signed a government contract and then he was gone to the next realm after signing that deal. And
Mm.
he actually had an energy source that was ran off of your tap water.
Wow.
So these are things that were in reality been shelved by companies because, oh, great idea. You know, you present yourself at a show, you show your technology, you're trying to sell your
Mm.
product or license your product to other companies so that you can have production go on, try and do the business sense. And
Mhm.
then you get shelved because that product does not make money in the long run. And I think that's we run the circle back, like Jen
Yeah.
Psaki would say, we circle back all the way full circle
Well,
to that. You know, we need to know full disclosure, and then let's make an accurate assessment on where our technologies lie. I love nuclear. I think that it is probably the most energy efficient. I have been down to Byron, Illinois, where there's a drag racing track there, and you know there's a nuclear plant in the background. Feels a little bit different than my normal environment. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
okay. Well, like I say, I'm a big proponent because I think in this day and age, it is so absolutely safe. And you think about the waste, the nuclear waste, I think they said in the last 50 years, I don't know, 50? I don't know if it's 60, but all the nuclear waste that's ever been accumulated, they can basically put in less than, say, one football field. I mean, it doesn't even take up a lot of space. It doesn't make that much waste. And you look at compare that to, well, let's bury these windmill blades forever and ever and ever in Colorado or wherever. What the heck are we going to do with these solar arrays? And I don't know. To me, it's such a simple solution, an obvious solution, and we need to get off of this afraid kick. People being afraid of nuclear because they've been led down that path, and it's not accurate. As for Pennsylvania being energy independent, that's an interesting prospect. I've never thought of it that way because when you think of things like natural gas that are pumped around on pipelines, you know, they're going across state lines, and
Yep.
natural gas, just like coal, is a fungible good. Okay. You can pick it out from any number of places, store it all together, and it's the same stuff. And it's easy to, you know, they've mastered transporting it,
Yep.
storing it,
Yep.
and to make PA energy independent. I don't know what that would actually look like. It would be like, would PA need its own energy grid? It's not set. We're not set up for that. Pipelines, same situation. You know, it's a neat thought, but I don't know if we'd have to go that far. I like the idea of our nation being energy independent, and I'm amazed and again a little disappointed. We are today. That's the irony. When I was growing up in the 70s, I remember us yearning. We were getting something like 50% of our oil from Saudi Arabia and other countries. We yearned to be energy independent. And we thought, oh, all these resources are going to run out within, 150 years, 200 years. No. What have we done? Wonderful technology, wonderful free market. We have discovered more resources than ever before. The United States now is I think it is the largest oil producer in the world. United States, then Russia, then Saudi Arabia. We are energy independent right now. And unfortunately, we have special interest groups and government that are restricting us from extracting the natural resources that we desperately need for the people in our country and, yes, beyond. We could keep our prices down right now. Oh, plus with these new reserves that they're constantly discovering, Our resources aren't running out in just 200 years. Now they're saying they're well beyond 500. It has gotten that much better just since my youth. So I don't know why people are scared. You know, they think, oh, if we do this, we're going to ruin the environment. No, we're not. I think we are more thoughtful about the environment today than ever before. There are double the cars on the road today that there were in 1970. Now think about that. We are running twice the number of cars. Fuel mileages are up. They run cleaner than ever. I think we are better stewards of the environment now than we ever have been. Look at this past century and show me when it's been better. I'm sorry, more than this past century. Go back 100 years. You won't find it. This is the best time, you know, that we should be living in from the viewpoint of products and the viewpoint of energy, availability, and efficiency. And the biggest problem we have going on is governments in the works. And if we could get them out of the way, we could improve all of these areas.
I completely agree. I think you're doing a wonderful thing out there in PA. You're for the decriminalization of all drugs, I'm assuming, because it's the fact that if there's no criminality for it, there can be no regulation. And that is probably the biggest thing between legalization and decriminalization.
Yeah,
is that you can't regulate it once it's decriminalized. If I want to go buy 10 million pounds of onions, I just go find the distributor and go buy it.
Yeah. No
if
problem.
I'm a pharmaceutical company, though, if I want to go buy 10,000 pounds of opioids, I can go buy it. Because I have a monopoly on that according to the structure of federal and state regulations that says my company is the only thing that can distribute it because we need to make things safe. Yeah. But there is always an FDA warning, or if you took this drug within this timeline, you are accredited to this lawsuit. So, I mean, what games are we playing here? You know, that's what I come down to is like, what games are we playing here? Do you want to have the most sustainable lifestyle that you can have? Obviously, every human being wants comfortability, sustainability, and security. Nobody wants to go through their life insecure. Why do you think we have all this mental health issues in this country? Everybody is insecure about everything they're doing because nobody has any idea what is the correct thing to do.
It's an interesting, and you make so many cool points here that we could touch on. I want to get back where you started with the prohibitions. I always point out to people that government prohibitions have never worked. Not one time. I'll say, show me one time it worked. And I point out alcohol. We actually tried that one, didn't we? We actually tried it for 10 years. That failed. What did it do? It spawned organized crime. It spawned a black market for the product. And they produced a new class of criminals out of this victimless crime. And eventually they turned it all around. Thank heavens.
Just wait, though, Joe. But we made a show in some states where that crime is still illegal to be a bootlegger, make your own home liquor.
That's a good point.
Because in Wisconsin, it is encouraged. Make your home brews. There's stores all over the place. Buy your hops. Buy your hydrometer or whatever it is to measure the alcohol level. Okay. The thing is that in other states, they still have organizations and state government that says you are not allowed to perform this action because it is against state law. And then Discovery says, well, shit, I can make a TV show about that, make millions of dollars selling products about how this is illegal. And just as long as you don't catch them in the act, they're placating on the legislation. It's kind of funny how that is a giant joke on government and people don't get it.
They buy it. And I don't get it either. You know, you look at, and here's another one I'll go with, especially here in Pennsylvania, gambling. It wasn't all that long ago. You know, let's just go back 30 years. Yeah, it's 1992. Okay, 92. Yeah, 30 years. There were people back then that would adamantly have said to me, Joe, You will never see table games or slot machines here in Pennsylvania. Not here in PA. Oh, guess what? We're now number 2 in the nation in casino table games, second only to Nevada. Boom, it just changed overnight. Here's another thing I point out. I remember when I was a teenager in the early 70s, gambling, I guarantee you they had forces that were raiding bars that had that had poker machines or were running a football pool, things like that. But all of a sudden, Pennsylvania decides, well, let's do the state lottery. And magically, just like that, gambling is okay because the state's
makes money.
Yes. So now we're number 2 in the nation, and that's great. I don't have anything against, if you want to gamble, do it. To me, it's entertainment. Okay.
Yeah. Personal choice.
It's a huge cash revenue stream now for the state. It wasn't very long ago if somebody said, well, we need to legalize marijuana, you'd just be ridiculed. You would be laughed at. Now, CBD oil is legal in this state. Medical usage is legal. And all of a sudden, you hear even the Democrats and the Republicans are saying, maybe it's finally time that we legalize recreational. Well, yeah, no kidding, guys. There was nothing wrong with it before. You're only interested in it now. And again, one of my opponents has come right out. He said, we need to regulate it and we need to tax it. So I responded to him, yes, exactly. I said, no, please decriminalize it. Will you please get out of our lives? Portugal has the best track record. The country of Portugal decided to decriminalize all drugs 20 years ago, 2002. And not just marijuana, mind you, all drugs, because they decided they were smarter than us when they realized this war on drugs was never going to work. They decided to look at drug usage as a medical problem rather than forcing it to be a criminal problem. They spend less than 1/10 of what we spend per family to do drug medical intervention to help people rather than throwing them in jails and incarcerating them, which is another money thing.
Well, that's what I was about to say, Joe, is that when they say we need to tax it and regulate it, you've already been taxing it and regulated ever since Henry Anslinger said that it was an illegal product because blacks and browns wanted to rape your white daughters. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. You tax. Can you pay back the lifetimes? If you wanted to add up every single individual that's ever been incarcerated for a victimless crime when it comes to drugs, just because they're trying to make an income to make their children a meal at the end of the day. How many lifetimes can you add up and say, well, that is not a tax? I taxed you your entire life.
Yes, you did. You ruined. I point this out to people. How many lives have been ruined because of the drug war? I'll say, and you get this, Justin. I'll say, how many people went to jail and now they're coming out? Ooh, you've got this new label. You're an ex-con. Now you are going to have difficulty finding employment. Next, you may have difficulty finding housing. So now all of a sudden you may be homeless. You may have difficulty finding credit going forward. Your life's destroyed because you did nothing wrong except maybe hold on to a flower pot that might have had the wrong plant in it. Oh, that's possession. I'm in trouble. Off
with intent. And then another enhancer. You're a part of this affiliation. Another enhancer. Well, you're this, and you're this, that. These labels, titles, and categories are just absolute nonsense to me. It's something I bring up all the time. Let's talk about human beings when it comes to public policy. And let's talk about the human being factor. There's no specialty to a human being other than being a human being.
Exactly right. And I'll point this out to people. I'll say what I just said. And every now and then you get somebody who's a little hardline, and they'll go, well, if they hadn't done anything wrong in the first place, and these are sometimes I'll say to people, okay, when I hear that, I'll say, let me give you this spin. During this 50-year plus period now that we've been fighting the war on drugs, think of all the police that have had to go on drug raids, no-knock raids, you name it. Think of how many police have unnecessarily been put in harm's way and didn't get to go home that night. And those lives are now gone. You know, especially when you hear people say, you know, I back the police and that's wonderful. Police do a tough job. But do you want them killed unnecessarily? If you're not going to have empathy for the person who may have smoked a joint, possessed a plant, maybe you can have a little empathy for the police who may have died. And again, that helps put the focus on what a failure the drug war is. And I think last I heard, we spent more than $3 trillion total fighting the drug war. That's wasted money. That was your tax dollars. Government blew it again. And we just need to totally end the war on drugs.
Well, right. And there was a documentary. Prohibition is just horseshit. The 7-5, which is a documentary about a precinct in New York, which had corruption, and then they had this guy, Mike Dowry, or Mike, I think that's his name, and biggest, corruptest cop ever. Millions of dollars transitioned from this man's hands as a foot cop patrolman.
Wow.
During the cocaine era of the early 80s into the early 90s.
Okay.
And when you have lost, when you can buy the enforcers of the policy, there is no enforcement.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with government. As a company, let's just say I'm out of country company, and I have a mythical amount of money in my hands that can provide whatever a politician may need, whether it be, you know, political funds or, you know, vacations or whatever. The thing is that, or insider trading deals where you have a stock option, let's say that. The thing is that I can create something that can be beneficial for myself real easy when I can buy a position in power to eliminate my competition.
Absolutely. Because now without the competition, you've got the market cornered. Absolutely.
And then I can say whatever is, well, the consumers projected safe levels of this exposure of my product is this. And the government goes, yeah, we have the studies that are done by this company that said that those are the levels that are safe. Yeah, we sign off on that by.
Yeah.
And then I'm leaving the government position to go work for this company as the CEO.
And you have to be very suspect of any studies you see today. We've all seen the proof. You know, there's some great studies out there that were done scientifically, that were done with the right population comparisons. But you also have plenty of studies out there that have been proven, and people have admitted, hey, we did this study to prove this particular point in advance. Well, I'm sorry.
I had an outcome in mind.
Right. That's not a study. That's propaganda. And because of that, it has tainted that whole industry, and we have to always be suspect. Yeah.
That goes back to, where do you derive your security? Is it in your own individual skill sets, or is it in your dependence on what somebody else taught you?
That's right.
Joe, we're working on about an hour and 20 minutes. I love this conversation. I'd like to keep it going. My bladder's killing me. I think that I'm probably running a little bit over on my YouTube right now. Let everybody know where they can find you in Pennsylvania, where they can vote for you, when they can vote for you, the Keystone Party. Let everybody know where they can hit you up on social media, and I'll give you the platform for the next 2 minutes.
You got it. Well, Justin, thank you so much. I am honored to have been on your show tonight and to be able to speak directly to your viewers. We've covered a lot. We've covered a lot more than I anticipated, and I have enjoyed it. I'm Joe Soloski. I'm running for governor of Pennsylvania. And as I said, if you want something different rather than your usual old, failed, tried R&D parties, you've got to vote for something different. And the liberty movement lives here with us in the Keystone Party now. You can check out Keystone at keystone.party. and find out what we're all about. If you're interested, like I say, we have about 24 states, I think, that so far are very interested in a Keystone affiliate. We're going to be going nationwide and running candidates. If you're interested, check in with us. As for my campaign, well, you can check me out specifically and all the issues that I'm trying to spotlight at joesoloski.com. Yes, it's right there on your screen, joesoloski.com. And thank you, Justin. We are very serious about this. We are in it to win it. And myself, my running mate, Nicole Schultz, she is such an asset. Like I say, where every place where it seems like I fall a little short, she's got the strengths. It's a nice 1-2 punch. I am never, ever going to turn away money. Campaigns are expensive. And I haven't had a contribution more than $500, and most were smaller. I like that. I like individual contributions. I am never, ever going to be beholden to any group, any company, any organization, even if they decide, we want to give you this big donation, Joe. Sorry. If you believe in our principles, please, yes, donate. But you can't buy me. You can't buy me. November 8th, general election here in Pennsylvania. I am looking forward to that day. We are less than 5 months away. It's going quickly. And I hope to be able to meet everyone that I can possibly here in Pennsylvania to shake their hands, answer their questions. I really want to hear what issues are most important to them. So please reach out to me at joesoloski.com. You can also email me there. Please do. I would love to hear your questions, hear about where you're interested on the issues, and I will get back to you personally. And I don't think you're going to get that from any other candidate. Justin, thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate you being on the show. Hit the man up, joesoloski.com. Get over there to the Keystone Party and see what they got going on as far as their liberty movement. I think that everybody, as far as a libertarian that's participating in my state party, I'm about libertarians. I think that a lot of things are going to happen here real soon. I'd love a duopoly between Keystone and Libertarians, to tell you the truth, to see how much they're going to cut government out of the life of the people and to reduce their actual existence. And until we have a utopia where everybody can sing Kumbaya and get rid of their differences, I go back to the Constitution. You have the freedom of speech. You have the freedom of religion. You have the freedom to assembly in public spaces with your like-minded people, just as long as you're not hurting anybody or taking their shit. Keep up the good work and hit us up. I'm the Lunatic Libertarian. That's Joe Soloski. Oh, I still can't get these cameras right. That's Joe Soloski. And we are here live on Facebook, YouTube. Get over there, joesoloski.com, keystone.party. Thank you very much, Joe. I hope you a very successful campaign for your governorship and keep the people free. Peace.
Thank you.